A question. Have you met any good hitmen recently? Well, today on Finding Traction, we discuss my latest, craziest idea, recovery inspiration from a hitman. Say what?
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, I'm glad that you found this webcast or this podcast. Some of you are watching this on YouTube under my name, Vern Tomke, a recovery channel. And others of you are watching this or listening to this as a podcast called Finding Traction on whatever podcast player that you're listening to. You know, this podcast, as the opening said, is all about helping you find recovery and, moving away from things that have plagued you and towards things that you most deeply desire for your life. If you're interested in finding out more about the Finding Traction curriculum, you can access it on the website, bandofbrothers.care. And if you also just want to look at some of the free resources, you can do that under bandofbrothers.care/free-downloads. That's downloads plural. Well, also one other thing I have been doing and getting into more of is group mentoring using Zoom calls. And I'm presently working on this right now. I have Zoom groups of guys from different time zones. And we're going to be starting a new summer Zoom group. This is the summer of 2020. And it's just open to anybody who's looking for traction. We're going to take you through with a group of guys through the Finding Traction curriculum. And if you want more information on how to become part of that group, then go ahead and email me at bandofbrothers@shaw.ca. Well, let's get on to our hitman. You know, I don't know where you get your life inspiration from. I get it from some of the craziest sources and sometimes the most unlikeliest of sources. Recently, I finished devouring a set of books by this author, Gregg Hurwitz. And it's all about a hitman. And I got totally inspired. Now, I love fiction. You know, I've come to the conclusion that many recovery guys are way too serious. And we need to learn to lighten up. Some good fiction, I think, is a good thing. And you just might find some inspiration along the way like I did. Well, in Gregg Hurwitz's novel series, and I think I'm on book 5 now. I'm waiting, can't wait for the next one to come out. Evan Smoke, that's spelled S-M-O-A-K, is a government hitman. And he's trying to live now on the straight and narrow without having the government pull him back into their latest black ops types of things. Or the government, trying to hide from the government who is trying to erase him, and kill him because he knows too much. And Evan is, for a hitman, he's a really good guy. I mean, he now secretly spends his life helping people who are enslaved and threatened by powerful, sinister people. And he delivers his own form of deliverance for them with his own special set of skills. You can imagine, if you know what I mean. So it's a great, great series. If you like, for example, Lee Child's Jack Reacher series, which I also love. This is like Lee Child's or Jack Reacher, but it's on steroids. And so I really encourage you, if you like fiction, to pick that or look at that series. But here's another thing about the series that I love. Evan Smoke is this salt of the earth kind of guy that has these amazing quotes and words of wisdom as he helps people get their lives back together. And I want to share some of these. Evan Smoke, he's also called Orphan X. I'm going to share some of these quotes with you, and I think you will see why I found some inspiration in them. And I think you will quickly make the connection, and I'm going to make the connection to our recovery journey, specifically around things like porn. So let me give you a couple fun quotes, first of all. And he constantly, of course, is beating up and killing people and doing things, bad guys, of course. And whenever he gets into one of these crazy situations, he gets close up, there might be three guys around him. He gets close up and looks the guy in the eyes and he says, "Look at me closely. Do I look scared?" Of course, he isn't scared because he has all these mad skills and he's prepared and he's got all these tools. His body is a tool, and his confidence comes from his training. And I think there's something to be learned from, where we prepare, we train, so we are prepared when we get into situations. Of course, nobody's trained quite like Evan Smoke, but his confidence comes from the fact that he has prepared going into a situation. Now, one of the things he's found out is there's downsides of being a hitman, and Jack is kind of this father figure that helped him. He was an orphan and raised him to be a hitman. But Jack was always concerned about Evan because he thought, if you become a hitman, it's going to change you. And this is what he said to Evan. He says, "Remember, the hard part isn't the killing." He says, the hard part is staying human. The hard part is not the killing, it's staying human. And you're going, where are you going with that? Well, work with me here. Here's where I think this spoke to me. Our behaviors change us. Some of our behaviors make us more human. Some of our behaviors make us less human. What do you mean by more human and less human? Well, here's where I'm going with this. If by, for example, viewing of porn, which is all about dehumanizing people. We don't know these people by and large. They may be situations where they're being taken advantage of, or in real life they might have actually been trafficked, or they might have got into the industry because they were vulnerable. But the point is, we're using them, we're consuming, we're looking at them as a collection of body parts. Do they fit our arousal template? Are they porn worthy for us to be attracted to? They're not real people. And because we are dehumanizing them, we end up being dehumanized ourselves. The hard part is staying human. I think if we make a lifestyle out of viewing porn, it makes me a little less human, a little less compassionate. As I get into social situations, I'm panning and scanning people who I think are attractive or not, or porn worthy. That for me does not and is not making me more human. Now, most of Evan Smoke's best quotes are all around becoming a better man. Listen to this one. Act like the man you want to be. Or this one. Envision someone else, someone better than you, stronger, smarter, tougher. Then do what that guy would do. Or here's another one. Someone smarter than either of us once said, if you want a quality, act like you already have it. These are great self-improvement quotes, but they actually, this is why they motivate me. They're a little bit of the Forrest Gump type of thing. Stupid is as stupid does. Now we're just taking the opposite of that, of saying, act like you already have it. Wisdom is what wisdom does. Recovery is what recovery does. All this whole idea is we need a picture of the man we want to be and simply begin to act towards it. If we don't have a picture of what kind of man we want to be, we just drift. We have to move, all we have is good, intentions for our life, great aspirational goals. But if we don't actually begin to take little behavioral steps towards the man we want to be, it means nothing. So simply, instead of talking about being a better man, simply start acting as if you were a better man, and lo and behold, you will become a better man. Here's another great quote. He says, act like the man you want to be, and you will become that man. Again, it's the opposite of stupid is as stupid does. So, how do we know we're getting anywhere in this journey? This whole podcast, this whole YouTube series is all about finding traction away from something but towards something better. Here's a great quote from Evan Smoke. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to someone else today. I have to continually remind myself I am not the man I was 5 years ago. Do I still battle? Yes. Do I have good periods and not so good periods? Absolutely. Do I wish I was further along? Yes. But progress comes one step at a time. And it's only when I look back and compare myself to the man I used to be, do things like this whole finding traction journey come into perspective for me. Here's another great Evan Smoke quote. Write your own story or someone else will. That's all about taking responsibility, not living out of somebody else's script or somebody else's expectation, or even responding to somebody else's reaction. I don't know why you got into recovery. It could be for many reasons. I'm guessing that a chunk of those reasons had to do with external pressure, perhaps from someone else. But that's only going to take you so far. Eventually, you have to want recovery for you. You have to want to write your own story, or you will find 100 little ways to lie and deny, shuck and jive away from the real changes you want to see in your life. You need to want these changes for your own life. The bottom line is this is all about taking responsibility. Here's another great quote from him. When you wrong someone, you don't get to say which grudges people may or may not hold. Those of us who have lied or wronged or betrayed other people, we have this crazy ability to somehow want to control their reactions, saying, well, you should be over it by now, or why haven't you forgiven me by now? Or, this is what what I want back from you in terms of your response to how I've hurt you. At the end of the day, you can't control any of that. You can only control your own choices and your own behaviors. You can try to mitigate the pain or the repercussions, but you don't have control over the consequences. You might try to defend yourself or get caught up in self-pity. I'm getting paid back far worse than what I ever did. You got to let go of all of that. You have no control over people's responses to your actions. You only have control over your own actions and your own responses. Talking about pain, listen to this quote. There is a great deal of pain in life. Perhaps the only pain that can be avoided is the pain that comes from trying to avoid pain. How many of us have got into porn to try to medicate or mitigate the pain in our lives? If we are going to be truly healed, we are going to have to journey into pain and through pain. We cannot run from it. You can start out in this whole porn recovery journey by just using tools and techniques. but you're only going to get so far if you're not willing to look at some of the deeper issues and be willing to walk through them. Here's another Evan Smoke pain-related quote. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's worth doing. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Recovery is not easy. It's not quick. And it takes us through pain and difficult circumstances. But if we refuse to take that journey and walk that out, our lives will be filled with more than pain. They will be filled with true suffering. Suffering that results from us refusing to look at the pain in our lives. Now, I've saved the best Evan Smoke quotes for the end. And this is one of the ones that he mentions a few times in various books. And it comes from a whole philosophy that he uses to get people to face forward. He often asks people, he says to them, do you know what the best two words in the English language are? And people often go, no, what are they? And these are the two words, he says, next time. And I love that whole phrase, next time, because it's all about, especially when we apply it to this whole idea of relapse and failure. Think about it. What has gone on before is over and done with. There's no hope to be found there. There's only regret to be found there. No matter how much you regret the things that you have done, you are not defined by it. And you're certainly not trapped there or held by it. And I get it, and I've experienced how demoralizing it is when you have a relapse. But all is not lost. It would be like saying, well, you're running a cross-country race or a marathon and you slip and fall, you trip and, somebody catches your heels and you fall. Well, they don't pick you up and carry you back to the beginning of the race and make you start all over again. That's simply not the way it's done. And I even get why people keep track of their recovery time. It's a way, for example, of kind of measuring your progress or saying, how far you've come. But the problem with that, to some degree, is if there's a relapse or a slip, you seem to think, maybe all is for naught and all that work in progress that I've done is basically all disappears. It's all gone. That's not the case either. What would Evan Smoke say? Next time. So take these words, next time. The words next time, they hold a world of possibility. They're all about the future. You can do something different next time. You can start down a different path. The words next time are full of hope and potential. I've often used a similar quote when I felt demoralized, or I've kind of, in my coaching, have helped other men who've been feeling demoralized. And this is what I've said to them. Do the next right thing. About 3.5 years ago, my wife went on a trip to Arizona to visit her mom. And when she was gone, it was early on when she was gone. She was going to be gone for a number of more days. I realized that this old PS4 that I had, I could use it to access porn. And before you knew it, I was down the rabbit hole. At that point, I had a choice. I could continue simply binging for the whole rest of the week when she was gone, and then deal with however far down I'd gone. Or I simply could do something different next time. I remember calling my buddy up and I said, you need to I took over the old PS4 and I simply had this phrase in mind: do the next right thing. I couldn't do anything about what had happened, but I could do something different about the remaining 4 or 5 days that I was on my own. So, next time. What does next time mean to you? And I've saved this Evan Smoke quote, my favorite Evan Smoke quote of all times, for the end. This is what he said. Any guy, can love 1,000 women, but only a true man can love one woman 1,000 ways. I'm going to say that again because it's so good. Any guy can love 1,000 women, but only a true man can love one woman 1,000 ways. You know, porn is all about endless novelty and clicking through 1,000 women. The old author C.S. Lewis describes what he calls a harem in our minds. But a real man grows old with one woman. He learns to love her and cherish her. As I said, grow old with her and leave a legacy behind. So what kind of man do you want to be? So here's to next time. So signing off till next time is Vern. God bless you, and I hope that you have a great day in walking in the sun. See you there.